So there I was, standing in what could generously be called the most pretentious courtroom in the galaxy, facing three alien judges who looked like they'd been specially bred for disapproval. The Galactic Tribunal of Extremely Serious Beings, they called themselves, because apparently regular serious wasn't cutting it anymore. Judge Pompington, a purple blob with more tentacles than sense, dramatically waved his appendages as he read the charges. Captain Jake Rodriguez, you stand accused of unauthorized black hole manipulation, disturbing the peace of 17 star systems, and, he paused for effect, excessive human audacity. Excessive human audacity? I couldn't help but grin. Your Honor, that's like charging a fish with excessive wetness. It's literally what we do. Counselor Nitpick, who looked like a praying mantis that had gone through law school and regretted every minute of it, clicked his mandibles disapprovingly. Regulation 47B clearly states that gravitational anomalies must be reported to the proper authorities within 0.003 standard galactic time units. You were 0.004 time units late. I was inside a black hole at the time. Time gets a bit wibbly in there. No excuse. Nitpick sniffed. Regulation 47C covers temporal displacement filing procedures. The third judge, Supreme Arbiter Stuffykins, looked like someone had crossed a walrus with a tax auditor and given the result delusions of grandeur. He stared down at me with the kind of disdain usually reserved for stepping in something unpleasant. Human, he said, managing to make my species sound like a particularly offensive curse word. Your kind's reckless behavior has consequences. Do you have any idea how many forms had to be filed because of your little adventure? Clearly not enough, since you're all still here complaining about it. Pompington's tentacles quivered with indignation. The defendant shows no remorse. 17 star systems had to recalibrate their orbital mechanics because of your actions. And they're all still there, aren't they? You're welcome, by the way. That recalibration fixed about 6 different traffic problems and gave 3 civilizations better sunsets. I should charge consulting fees. Stuffykins leaned forward, his whiskers twitching. This tribunal will determine your fate, human. But first, we must know. Can you handle pressure? I looked up at these 3 cosmic killjoys, each one representing everything wrong with bureaucracy on a galactic scale, and felt that familiar itch between my shoulder blades that usually meant things were about to get interesting. Your Honors, I said, settling back in the defendant's chair like I was getting comfortable for a long story. Should I show you what broke first, me or the black hole? See, it all started 3 weeks ago with what Dr. Cornelius Blabsworth called a perfectly routine salvage operation. Any spacer worth their void suit knows that when a scientist uses the word perfectly before describing anything, you should immediately check your insurance policy and update your will. Dr. Blabsworth was the kind of guy who used 17 words when one would do, and could turn a simple hello into a lecture on the socio-cultural implications of greeting rituals across 14 species. He'd hired me and my crew to retrieve some minor research equipment from an abandoned station near what he described as a completely stable, thoroughly documented, absolutely harmless black hole. Captain Rodriguez, he'd said, adjusting his thick glasses for the 100th time that hour, this is merely a matter of approaching the station, which I must emphasize is completely vacant, entirely unoccupied, and thoroughly devoid of any sentient presence, collecting the equipment and departing. Simple. My pilot, Tommy Collins, who everyone called Crash for reasons that should be obvious, was immediately suspicious. Boss, when eggheads use that many adjectives to say a place is empty, it usually means it's packed tighter than a cargo hold full of angry spratlings. Tommy was 23, had the reflexes of a caffeinated mongoose, and the survival instincts of a lemming with a death wish. But he could fly anything with engines and some things without them. Maxine Murphy, my engineer, looked up from the scanner readings with the expression she usually reserved for discovering someone had used duct tape on a plasma conduit. Jake, this black hole's gravitational signature is doing things that would make Einstein file a complaint. Its reading is stable, unstable, collapsed, expanded, and somehow inside out all at the same time. Max was the kind of engineer who could fix a hyperdrive with a paperclip and creative swearing, but she had an unfortunate habit of being right about impending disasters. I'd learned to pay attention when she got that particular wrinkle between her eyebrows. Dr. Blabsworth, I said, you want to explain why your harmless black hole is apparently having an identity crisis? Oh, that? He laughed nervously. Minor fluctuations in the readings probably caused by solar wind or cosmic background radiation or perhaps a flock of space pigeons. Nothing to worry about whatsoever. We should have turned around right then, but the good doctor was paying triple hazard rates and my crew needed to eat. Plus, I had a reputation to maintain as the guy who took jobs other captains wouldn't touch with a 10-foot gravitational pole. The research station looked normal enough from the outside. Your standard prefab orbital platform, all clean lines and blinking lights. It was when we tried to dock that things got interesting. The station's defense systems, which should have been offline, woke up and decided we looked suspicious. Boss, Tommy called from the pilot's seat as proximity alarms started screaming. The nice empty station is shooting at us. Probably just an automated welcome committee, I said, dodging a plasma bolt that could have opened us like a tin can. Very enthusiastic hosts, these researchers. That's when the black hole decided to join the conversation. What had been a stable gravitational field suddenly hiccuped, sending us spinning sideways through space in a direction that didn't technically exist until that moment. Jake! Max yelled over the sound of protesting hull plating. That black hole just violated about 6 fundamental laws of physics, and it's doing it again. Dr. Blabsworth had gone very quiet, which in my experience meant either he was dead or he'd just realized how much trouble we were all in. Turns out Dr. Blabsworth's definition of abandoned research station was about as accurate as his definition of harmless black hole. The station wasn't just occupied. It was running full-scale experiments on something called gravitational coherence manipulation, which in layman's terms meant they were teaching black holes to do tricks. You see, Blabsworth finally admitted as we dodged another barrage from the station's defense grid. The research was progressing quite well until the test subjects began exhibiting unexpected behavioral patterns. The test subjects being the black hole? I asked, wrestling with the ship's controls as space-time decided to take another coffee break around us. Indeed, most fascinating, really. We were attempting to modify the singularity's event horizon dynamics when it began demonstrating what could charitably be described as personality traits. Before I could properly express my opinion of scientists who give personality disorders to cosmic phenomena, our sensors lit up with new contacts, a whole fleet of them, approaching fast and broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Commissioner Reginald Paperclip of the Cosmic Regulatory Commission, came a voice so stuffed with bureaucratic authority it could have suffocated a small planet. By the power invested in me by Form 77X subsection J, I hereby declare this area a violation containment zone. Prepare to be processed according to Regulation 156C. Tommy looked back at me with wide eyes. Boss, they've got enough firepower to turn this whole sector into cosmic dust. What's the plan? The plan, as it turned out, was to watch the black hole throw what could only be described as a gravitational tantrum. It started small, a few spatial hiccups that made the station's lights flicker. Then it escalated to bending light into pretzel shapes and making the Commissioner's fleet dance the cosmic equivalent of the Macarena. Fascinating, Blabsworth exclaimed, apparently having forgotten we were all about to die. The singularity is exhibiting clear signs of emotional distress. This is unprecedented. Great, I muttered, watching one of the commission ships get twisted into a Klein bottle. We've got a depressed black hole with anger management issues. Commissioner Paperclip was not taking the situation well. Form 89Z clearly states that unauthorized gravitational anomalies must be contained using standard suppression protocols. I demand compliance. The black hole responded by turning his flagship purple and making it taste like strawberries. At least that's what the Commissioner's panicked radio transmission suggested. Max was frantically working at her console trying to make sense of the station's research data. Jake, according to these readings, they've been using some kind of quantum consciousness interface to communicate with the black hole. It's not just manipulating gravity, it's actually thinking. And apparently having a breakdown, I observed as another commission ship found itself momentarily existing in 7 dimensions simultaneously. That's when I had what Tommy later called either a brilliant idea or a complete psychotic break. Looking at the swirling maelstrom of twisted space-time, the panicking bureaucrats, and the increasingly unstable research station, I came to the only logical conclusion. "I'm going in," I announced. "Going in where?" Max asked. "The black hole." Tommy and Max exchanged the look they usually reserved for when I suggested using the ship's coffee maker to repair critical systems. "Boss," Tommy said carefully, "black holes are generally considered to be bad for your health. Like, permanently bad. As in, you go in, you don't come out, and physics writes you a very stern letter about it." "Not necessarily," I said, studying the sensor readings. "This isn't a normal black hole anymore. Blabsworth's team turned it into some kind of cosmic therapy patient. If it's got consciousness, it can be reasoned with." "And if you're wrong?" Max asked. "Then you'll have a great story to tell at my funeral." Flying into a black hole is not something they teach you at the academy, mostly because it's impossible, insane, and generally results in what physicists politely call spaghettification, which sounds delicious, but involves your atoms being stretched across several light years in ways that are decidedly fatal. But this wasn't a normal black hole anymore. Thanks to Dr. Blabsworth's team, it had developed what could charitably be called a personality, and what could accurately be described as severe emotional issues. "Boss," Tommy's voice crackled over the comm as I approached the event horizon. "The sensor readings are going completely insane. According to these instruments, you're simultaneously approaching the black hole, already inside it, haven't left the ship yet, and somehow filing a complaint with the Galactic Postal Service." "That's quantum consciousness for you," I replied, watching space-time fold around my ship like origami made by someone having a seizure. Reality becomes more of a suggestion than a rule. The moment I crossed the event horizon should have been the moment I became a very long, very dead string of subatomic particles. Instead, I found myself in what looked like the universe's most surreal waiting room. The walls were made of crystallized starlight. The floor was polished dark matter, and there was music playing that sounded suspiciously like the cosmic background radiation arranged for easy listening. "Welcome," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, "to the customer service department of existential dread." I looked around the impossible space and spotted what I assumed was the black hole's consciousness, a swirling mass of compressed reality that somehow managed to look depressed. If you've ever seen a storm cloud with self-esteem issues, you'll have some idea of what I was dealing with. "Let me guess," I said, settling into a chair that was probably made from compressed quasars. "You're having an existential crisis." "I never asked to be a black hole," the entity wailed, and the entire space around us shuddered with cosmic anguish. "Do you know what it's like to be a fundamental force of destruction? Everyone runs away from me. I haven't had a decent conversation in 3 billion years. So you decided to redecorate space-time to get some attention?" "I was just trying to make friends. But every time I reach out to someone, they get all stretched in quantum and cease to exist. It's very lonely being a singularity." I'd like to say I was prepared for this conversation, but there's really no training manual for providing therapy to a depressed cosmic phenomenon. Fortunately, I've had practice dealing with emotionally unstable entities. I was married once. "Look," I said, "I get it. Being a force of cosmic destruction isn't exactly a people person's job. But throwing gravitational tantrums isn't the answer. You're scaring the neighbors." Outside, I could hear Tommy's increasingly frantic radio calls and what sounded like Commissioner Paperclip having a complete bureaucratic meltdown as his fleet continued to experience impossible physics. "The little organic beings with their regulations want to shut me down," the black hole sniffled, somehow managing to make a sound that conveyed cosmic sadness. "They say I'm a hazard to navigation and a violation of standard gravitational protocols." "Bureaucrats," I said sympathetically. "They wouldn't recognize creativity if it filed the proper forms in triplicate. But here's the thing. You can't solve loneliness by driving everyone away. You need to learn to control your, let's call them emotional outbursts." "But how? Every time I feel something, reality hiccups." That's when I had an idea that was either inspired or completely insane. Knowing my track record, it was probably both. What if I taught you to channel those feelings into something constructive? Instead of warping space-time when you're upset, what if you learned to I don't know. Rearrange asteroids into pretty patterns, or give ships a gentle boost when they need it. The black hole's consciousness brightened, which was a deeply unsettling experience in a space where light had given up trying to behave normally. You mean, I could help instead of hurt? Sure. Think of it as cosmic community service, but first we need to fix this mess you've made outside. Convincing a supermassive black hole to attend anger management therapy was apparently easier than getting Commissioner Paperclip to admit his regulations might be inadequate for dealing with sentient cosmic phenomena. This is highly irregular, his voice squawked over the comm as I emerged from the black hole riding what I can only describe as a gravity wave shaped like a cosmic surfboard. There are proper procedures for dealing with anomalous gravitational entities. Yeah, well, your procedures were about to turn my new friend here into cosmic scrap. I replied, somehow managing to maintain my balance on crystallized spacetime, while the black hole, who'd decided to call itself Pete, practiced its newfound emotional control techniques. The solution, as it turned out, involved rewiring the research station's quantum consciousness interface with a generous application of duct tape, creative profanity, and Max's particular talent for making impossible technology do what she wanted instead of what it was designed for. Jake? Max's voice crackled over the comm. I've managed to stabilize the consciousness matrix, but you need to keep Pete calm while I recalibrate the gravitational harmonics. You hear that, Pete? I called out to the black hole. Deep breaths, think happy thoughts, maybe imagine Commissioner Paperclip getting buried in his own paperwork. Pete giggled, which caused a ripple in space-time that made 3 of the Commission's ships briefly exist as mathematical concepts rather than physical objects. The Commissioner was not amused. I demand immediate cessation of these unauthorized gravitational manipulations. Form 234R clearly states. That's when Pete decided to demonstrate its newfound people skills by giving the Commissioner's entire fleet a gentle but firm suggestion to take their regulations and file them somewhere dimensionally improbable. The space battle that followed was less of a battle and more of a cosmic interpretive dance, with Pete gleefully showing off its ability to make enemy ships perform synchronized swimming maneuvers through hyperspace, while the Commission forces tried desperately to maintain some semblance of military dignity. This is impossible, Paperclip shrieked, as his flagship found itself doing barrel rolls through the 4th dimension. Gravitational fields don't work that way. They do now, Pete replied cheerfully, having discovered the joy of creative physics. Watch this. The black hole proceeded to demonstrate its mastery of what it called constructive space-time modification, by gently rearranging the local stellar neighborhood into a more aesthetically pleasing configuration. 17 star systems found their orbits adjusted for optimal traffic flow, improved solar efficiency, and better sunset views. The Commission fleet, meanwhile, got caught in what Pete enthusiastically described as a cosmic wedgie, and were last seen spinning rapidly toward the next sector, broadcasting increasingly desperate forms and regulations that nobody was listening to. Tommy and Max watched the whole thing from a safe distance, providing color commentary that I'm pretty sure they were recording for posterity. 20 credits as Jake convinces the black hole to give the Commissioner's ship a atomic wedgie. Tommy's voice came over the comm. You're on, Max replied. I'm betting Pete turns their whole fleet into a cosmic conga line. As it turned out, Pete did both, plus gave them complimentary makeovers that left the Commission ships a lovely shade of purple with sparkles. When the dust settled, the research station was stable. Pete was happily humming a tune that made nearby asteroids dance in formation, and the Commission fleet was nowhere to be seen, though we could still hear Commissioner Paperclip's increasingly hysterical radio transmissions fading into the distance. Jake, Max said as we regrouped near the station, I'm pretty sure we just revolutionized astrophysics, violated about 12 international treaties, and gave a cosmic entity therapy all in the same afternoon. Just another Tuesday, I replied, watching Pete practice making heart shapes with its accretion disk. And that, Your Honors, is how I ended up having a heart-to-heart with a clinically depressed black hole, and teaching it anger management techniques that may have accidentally rewritten several fundamental laws of physics. The 3 judges of the Galactic Tribunal of Extremely Serious Beings stared at me with expressions ranging from horror to fascination, to what might have been indigestion. Judge Pompington's tentacles had gone completely limp. You gave psychological counseling to a singularity? Pro bono too, though I'm thinking of adding cosmic therapist to my business cards. Counselor Nitpick was frantically flipping through his regulation handbook. There's nothing in here about licensing requirements for gravitational entity psychology. This is a complete regulatory nightmare. Maybe you should add a new section. I suggest calling it When Physics Gets Feelings. Supreme Arbiter Stuffykins leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously under his bulk. Human, your story raises several disturbing questions about the nature of consciousness, the stability of reality, and whether our insurance policies cover cosmic therapy sessions. So, I said, crossing my arms and giving them my best cocky grin. Getting back to your original question about whether I can handle pressure. Should I remind you what broke first? Me, or the black hole that was throwing a tantrum and reshaping local space-time? The three judges exchanged glances that suggested they were rapidly reconsidering their career choices. The defendant makes a point, Pompington admitted reluctantly. The black hole did seek therapy first. And completed the program successfully, I added. Pete sends its regards, by the way. It's been attending regular support group meetings with other reformed cosmic phenomena. Very touching stuff. That's when Stuffykins said something that nobody, least of all me, saw coming. Captain Rodriguez, the tribunal has reached a decision. We would like to offer you a position as our official impossible situations specialist. I blinked. Come again? Given your unique ability to solve problems that shouldn't exist using methods that shouldn't work, we believe you could be valuable in our ongoing efforts to maintain galactic peace and stability. The pay is excellent, Nitpick added hopefully, and the benefits package includes full coverage for reality-related injuries. I looked at these three cosmic bureaucrats, each one representing everything I'd spent my career avoiding, and felt that familiar itch between my shoulder blades. Gentlemen, I said, standing up and straightening my jacket, I appreciate the offer. I really do. But I've got a suggestion for where you can file your job offer, and it involves a dimension that doesn't technically exist yet. I walked toward the exit, leaving three very confused alien judges in my wake. Captain, Stuffykins called after me. Where are you going? Back to work, I replied. Pete's been asking about expanding its therapy practice, and I know a few asteroids with serious anger management issues. As I stepped outside the tribunal building, I couldn't help but notice a few minor gravitational hiccups around the structure. Nothing serious, just the kind of space-time fluctuations that suggested someone with cosmic-scale emotional issues was feeling a bit protective of their favorite therapist. Thanks, Pete, I muttered, heading back to my ship where Tommy and Max were probably placing bets on how long it would take me to get arrested again. After all, the galaxy is full of impossible problems that need solving, cosmic entities that need therapy, and bureaucrats who need to learn that some things can't be fixed with the proper forms. And I'm just the human to remind them that sometimes the best solution is the one nobody saw coming, especially when it involves teaching a black hole that the real treasure was the friends it made along the way. The universe is a weird place, but it's never boring when you're human.